Hey, and welcome to the data overview presentation. This is for the third grade administration meeting. This is Clark Creek STEM Academy. This is pre-planning of July of 2014. We are going to, during this meeting, going to be looking at the district county trends versus the state trends over the last few years. We're also going to look at the data from the state website for 2012-2013. I'm going to be touching on some strengths, but mainly some weaknesses, and we're going to be focusing on two subgroups. And hopefully this will set the stage for the school improvement, to look for instructional changes we can make that are student-driven, and teacher changes that we can make for these students as well. The subgroups I mentioned will be ESOL and economically disadvantaged. Okay, so in 2012-2013, the most recent year on the Governor's Office of Student Achievement, which is where all the data has come from, we can see that overall in the state, that reading, 5% did not meet, English language arts, 8% did not meet. Then we have math at 14%, science at 21%, and social studies at 19%. So obviously, our focus on reading and English language arts has been that focus and that teaching has been there. And of course, as we shift to Common Core, things will change even more. All right, so let's look at the district in 2012-2013. You can see that we did better as a county, 2% in reading, 4% in English language arts. The reading, that's a 6 percentage points lower than the state, 4 percentage points lower than the state in English language arts. We are 6 percentage points lower in math. We are 8% overall. Science, we were 9 percentage points at 12%, and then for social studies we were 6 percentage points lower at 13% not meeting. So overall, as a district, as a county, we did perform better than the state averages. But now we really want to look at third grade. Now, because Clark Creek is a new school, we only have a couple years of data. The state has only loaded the 2012-2013. So as a county, let's look at our last few years in third grade math. And we're going to break it down into subject area, and specifically, obviously, I've chosen math. We're also then going to look at ESOL and economically disadvantaged. All right, so starting in 08-09, as a county, our math, we had 22% of students not meeting in math. Okay, our ESOL, which is limited English proficient, 29%. Our economically disadvantaged was 30%, and then those who are not economically disadvantaged were at 11%. And you can see right there, that's a fairly large gap for those who are disadvantaged to not disadvantaged. So that's something we're going to be looking at. In 2009-2010, our overall, we're at 20%, so we obviously gained some meets and exceeds. But our ESOL was at 25%, our economically disadvantaged was at 28%, and look at the difference between that and the not economically disadvantaged at 9%. So consistently so far, those students who are either ESOL or economically disadvantaged really are at a disadvantage. They are not making gain as the overall student body and the not economically disadvantaged students. All right, so in 10-11, we made some more gains. Math is down to 19% of does not meet. But again, our ESOL, we've come down to 23%. Again, the economically disadvantaged at 26%, and the not economically disadvantaged at 8%. So changes are being made, but those two subgroups are really not meeting where they need to be. All right, so here we go into the state website for 2011-2012. Overall, as a county, our math, we were at 13% for that year. Our ESOL students, we were at 29% not meeting. Our economically disadvantaged, we were at 24% not meeting. But our non-economically disadvantaged students, we were at 8%. So that trend has continued over the years that I have shown you. 2012-2013, now we did a lot better. We are at 15% overall. Our ESOL population is double that at 30%. So now we would have hit Common Core. So we'll have to look at what, as teachers, are we doing to help change, fill in the achievement gap there. Our economically disadvantaged, 25%. So again, what are we not doing for these students? And our non-economically disadvantaged students, we're at 9%. So that achievement gap is quite wide, and we need to make sure we figure out as teachers what we can do to help them. All right, so let's take all of that data. That's a lot of data and a lot of information. Let's take all of that and let's look at it over time. Now, all of the averages that's the orange line. Okay, and you can see over time we are steadily making progress and moving students out of the does not meet. But let's look at our ESOL kids, the blue line. Okay, we were making progress, and then 2011, 2012, Common Core starts building it. So we can see that shift, and we'd have to, my first instinct guess would be vocabulary, because they already say, well, let's look at our economically disadvantaged. That is my red line. Now, they're making progress, but look at the achievement gap between, you've got 25% of them not passing. Now, let's look at the non-economically disadvantaged. Look at the difference between all of them. They are well below, they are making progress. Obviously, there's been a little shift, but I would have to throw that up to Common Core and the change in structure that we've been using. There's a huge achievement gap there. From all of our students, you go up to our ESOL and our economically disadvantaged who are not maintaining and achieving the way our non-economically disadvantaged students are. Okay, so just for Clark Creek, in the last year that the state has access to, we had 903 students tested. 21% of our third grade did not pass in math. Okay, and that's by far the largest percentage of the not passing. We did pretty well in all the others. Reading, we blew out of the water. All right, so let's look at what we have. ESOL in math. 26% of our students at Clark Creek did not pass in math. Although look at our strength in reading. 77% of our ESOL students we didn't even have did not pass. They all met, and we even had some exceed. So that's a fabulous strength there. But then you look at your other areas, what do we need to do to improve that? Our economically disadvantaged students, 28% of our economically disadvantaged students did not meet in math. Now look at the strength again in reading. We only have 4% did not meet. The 53, over half of them met, and 43% of them exceeded. So again, we obviously have a very good strength right there in reading, that we are meeting their needs when it comes to that. Okay, non-economically disadvantaged. Now you can see here 12% did not meet in math. So there, and you can also kind of look at our strengths in the other areas for those kids, but how do we translate that into helping our ESOL and economically disadvantaged children? We're definitely meeting the bulk of our students' needs, but we need to really focus on these two subgroups. We are a Title I school, and as a Title I school, we're going to have economically disadvantaged. We're going to have, a population of ESOL. They're starting to shift in. We need to make sure that we're getting there. So we definitely have some really good strengths in reading, and now we need to take that and translate that over to our math and what we can do. So as a group, we are going to sit down. I want you to take and think the first impression, your first observations of the data. You have a copy of the PowerPoint in front of you, so if you would, you can flip back through the charts. I can flip back for you. And I want you to take your Post-its, and I want you to give me the first impression of what it is that you saw and what I've said. Okay, now that we've done first impressions, we need to have a dialogue. Okay, let's organize these impressions and observations. Do we see specific themes in what we've seen? Do you speak as a group? How can we organize these and put them into different groups? Let's take a moment to do that. Do some fit in other groups? Can we move these around? We can be completely flexible. All right, we'll take a moment to check on those. All right, now let's talk about teaching implications. What can we do differently? How do we use our best practices for the ESOL and the economically disadvantaged? We are going to take a pause here, and I want you to, let's brainstorm a list of things that we do for our kids, and how can we take those and manage those in for our ESOL students and our economically disadvantaged. Now let's remember, we have to accommodate them. We're not here to place blame. They cannot control their situation. That is something that is outside. What we can control is our teaching and how we impact them. And I know that all students come to school with some kind of baggage, but I definitely think that we have to take control of what we can control, and that's our teaching. So let's brainstorm some stuff and get that organized. So pause here and let's talk about that. Okay, well, that was the end of the presentation. Obviously, this will be an ongoing discussion and dialogue that we have on how best to help our ESOL students and our economically disadvantaged students. We have some great strengths. We're doing better than the state averages. We're right there in the district. Our trends are very similar. We have a strength in reading. The bulk of our two subgroups that we've looked at today in ESOL and economically disadvantaged, they are keep at par with the group as a whole. Where we're not meeting for them is in math. And so how do we translate what we do for them in reading and put that into our math? How do we change our practices to accommodate them to make sure that they're learning? Because obviously they can. That's a strength. They can do it. We just have to kind of tweak what we can control and make that happen for them. So thank you, and I look forward to the next presentation in looking at the data again.